Can you talk a little about how you got to LA and why, what got you to LA? To the jazz world, the film music world in general?
Okay, we'll go pretty much to the beginning. I'll go kind of quickly. As you know, I told you before I was born with asthma. And so I ended up picking up trumpet. The doctor suggested after my left lung collapse that I take up a wind instrument. I picked trumpet. And my teacher, I had a great teacher in Oakland, and he taught me more legit way of playing. So I really thought, okay, I'm gonna become a legit trumpet player, work in the symphonies and things like that. And then when I was in started high school, they had a jazz band, and so got into that and thought, man, this is really cool. So I started to work a lot in San Francisco. Again, I was still doing a lot. I was subbing in the Oakland Symphony. I was subbing in the San Francisco Symphony and doing all those kind of things, but also playing on the outside. Like I was in the original Oakland Raider band, the football band, and played a bunch of jobs. And when I was this was 1969, so I was just 20 years old. I was working with Bobby Darin. You heard that name, right? It was and Bobby Darin was at a club in San Francisco, and his conductor Bob Rosario liked my playing. And so he asked if I wanted to go to Reno. Bobby was going to go up there for a couple of weeks. So I went up to Reno with Bobby Darin as his first trumpet player. I had to lie about my age because I wasn't even 21. Anyway, so I always knew that LA is where I wanted to be. Even when I was a kid, I remember watching the Academy Awards and thinking, wow, someday I'd really love to play that. And just watching uh, all the different great live shows that they had back then and hearing the great playing. And also the cartoons, listening to uh, all the Tiny Toons, I mean the Warner Brothers cartoons, and knowing that I wanted to play that style of playing, and learn how to do that. And so I went to Reno, and I was up at Harrah's Reno I played for all the acts up there for a couple of years. Actually, the best thing was December of '69. Bill Cosby came in to Harris for 2 weeks, and as his opening act, he brought in Dizzy Gillespie,
Oh, come on.
which was really kind of cool. So I had a chance to actually work with Dizzy and hang with him and talk with him. And then, of course, years later, playing in his band and doing records with him. But and then the other one was Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. They came in, and their conductor was Rafael Mendez. So Rafael Mendez would play a couple tunes for the audience and then turn around and conduct the orchestra for Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. So, I was honing my craft up there. From there, I knew I needed to get more uh, experience. So I went to Las Vegas. And back then, every hotel in Las Vegas in the 70s had its own house band where they would play, the acts would come in and they would play for the band. The house band could only work 6 days a week, so the acts had to work seven, so they had what they call a relief band. And that's what I did. I was the first trumpet in the relief band, and I played six different hotels every week. So I had a chance to play all the acts. I had a chance to meet Nelson Riddle, Don Costa, Peter Matz, all these great composers and stuff. And so when I eventually, knew that I wanted to come to Los Angeles, which was in 1980, um, I made these phone calls, and I immediately started working with Peter Matz. Started to work with Don Costa and Nelson Riddle, and that's how I eventually got here. And it's just been, it's been a thrill to be able to work in Los Angeles and work with the amazing players I get to work with.
Like on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, thank God. It's during the summer, it slows down a little bit, but there's always things to do, which is kind of neat.
So when you say it does slow down a little, what does it how does it affect you? I mean, are there less sessions than you like a decade before ago?
Yeah, well, there's less sessions because TV usually doesn't start up here again until August. So now starting this month, it's going to start to get busy as far as some of the TV shows. As far as the movies, we were before the summer started. We did all the summer movies that are out there right now, and so during the summer, there's movies every once in a while, but there's not a lot. I mean, it's kind of slowed down in town. But man, when it gets crazy busy, it gets crazy busy, which is great.
Those
And I love
blocks, I
that
can
part.
imagine, right? Those blocks where you have a crazy lot of stuff to do, and then those blocks where
Oh
you
yeah,
have
it's
slow down.
total. Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, it can be. But again, that's the great thing. And I love it. And it's like I told my wife, I said the day I wake up and it's not fun, that's the day I quit. It's way too much fun. Way too much fun.
So how do you actually handle your appointments?
For the jobs, they have contractors
Ah, yeah.
you have the leader who writes the music. Contractor's the one that gets together with the leader. They decide how many musicians, and the contractors are the ones that put the calls out to the musicians.
Yeah.
And they do that through a service called Dateline.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And so they'll either email you or they'll call and say, listen, we got this coming up. Are you available to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 o'clock doubles for John Powell, or whoever. And so, yeah, I do it all myself. I write it down to the book, and yeah, I don't have a secretary or anything like that. Actually, I don't think any of the guys really do.
Yeah,
You know, you you pretty much have to be hands on. There's some conflicts, and when there is a conflict where I'll get a call to do a movie, and let's say I have the Emmys that week,
yeah,
and then I have to make the decision, what am I going to take,
yeah,
you know. So it's there is some conflicts every once in a while, not as many, not as much anymore as there used to be. The business has changed a lot.
yeah.
Um, when I came to town in the '80s, television was going crazy. At Universal alone, they had 7 shows every week.
Wow.
And at Fox, we had 4 shows every week. So that was putting a lot of musicians to work. And so the guys who would do the movies, which is what everybody wants to do, they would get called to do a movie, so they'd turn down the TV show, and then it would trickle down to the next level of players, and that's how we all got started. And so now, because as far as TV shows, there is, of course, The Simpsons and Family Guy and American Dad, those shows, the cartoons. There's a couple shows that are still using at least trumpets,
Yeah.
which is Revenge, and what's the other one? God, I can't even think right now. Isn't that horrible? But I'm lucky. I get a chance every. I'm first trumpet on Dance with the Stars,
Yeah.
and the thing we love about it is it's totally live.
Yeah.
There's no pre-records. There's nothing. It's just totally live, and I love playing live. I mean, I always have. This year in March will be my 30th year on the Academy Awards.
Wow.
So I feel really good about that. And like I said, I love playing live. I love doing all those shows and TV shows, and it's a thrill.
So
It really is a
was
thrill.
it cool when you did the last Academy Awards with Bill Ross at Capitol? That was cool, huh?
That was really fun. I mean, I kind of wish that we're at the venue.
Yeah.
I really was, because at the venue, you're part of the festivities. And but yeah, by us being a capital, we were still playing live, and they said, if the winner is, boom, we would play that live. But it's kind of more fun to be at the venue and to see all the stars. Hey, that's the fun part of the gig.
So how does it feel for you, like when you talked about coming to LA in the '80s? How does it feel when like fanboys or even your fellow musician talk about you as one of the greatest trumpet players in those bands. I mean, you're one of, everyone's favorite. Like like when they talk about film music or even on a jazz gig or something like that. Who's on it? Yeah, he's on it. He's on it. Rick is on it. Well, Rick is great. How does it feel over like 3 decades to get to this point where the people know you and love you?
Well, truthfully, I don't give lessons, trumpet lessons to kids, but what I like to do is I like to sit down and talk and and give them directions and give them. And the one thing that I always said is, if you're going to be working, especially in Los Angeles, you have to play your horn. I mean, there's no baloney. You cannot, there'll be times when you'll be able to skate, skate by, but you have to know how to play. The other thing that a lot of guys don't understand is that you also have to be liked, and you have to be look like you want to be there, And the thing I found with a lot of the players here is that we all love what we do, and you got to understand it's not us trying to be heroes. It's the fact of us making the music sound the best it can,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And as long as we go in with that kind of attitude, hey, we all have egos. You all want to be able to play the solos, and you all want to be able to play the first book, whatever. That's not going to happen every time.
yeah.
So, what you have to do is you go in there, and if whether it's Malcolm McNabb playing lead trumpet, or John Lewis, or Wayne Bergeron, or whoever, I'm going to go in and I'm going to support those guys. I'm going to play the best I can, and have a good time doing it. And I think if you do that, I mean, you yourself, I'm sure, have worked with other musicians who are kind of a drag. And even though they're great players, they're not fun to be around. I think that you have to kind of check your ego at the door. Whereas you're going to go in, and like I said, you're not going to play first every time. But man, if you're going to play second, third, or fourth, you play the best second, third, or fourth you can. You're still getting paid. You're still working with amazing musicians. I wish a lot of my of the trumpet players that are out there understood that.
Yeah.
You could be a nice guy and still be a great player.
Wow. Yeah.
I just sometimes it bothers me when I hear stories of other players who treat other musicians like crap, and I think that
Yeah. That does happen a lot, right? Yeah.
that's not the way it's supposed to be. When I hear from people on Facebook, this just recently I heard from a young kid who plays trumpet in Iran,
Oh wow.
and he knows like I said, I've worked on maybe 1,200 movies, right? More than 1,200 motion pictures. But the one I get the most press for is The
Incredibles.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And so here's this young kid. I think he was 14 or 15 years old, and he found me on Facebook, and he wrote and he says, "Oh, Mr. Baptist, he says, yeah, it's such an honor to see you and talk to you, and just and I love the incredible. I mean, I think that is so cool that here's somebody halfway across the world like yourself who you know wants to see me and talk to me. I think that's way cool.
And just to confirm that The Incredibles is a kick-ass score and kick-ass
Oh
performance.
yeah.
Actually, the performance is great, and I'm so proud that I got my booklet signed by
Ah, there you go.
Mr. McNabb, Mr. Gikio, and all that. That was cool. So that was
Oh, that.
that is a kick-ass score, and actually that's one of the greatest things that actually happened to me after meeting you guys and all that. I was around in LA like November 2010, and it was my last week, and I had an appointment with an orchestrator I was talking to on the phone recently. Like half a year before, who was just a very nice and humble man, and he said, you may call whenever you want, and when you're around, just give me a buzz. And that guy was Jack Hayes.
Uh,
And
God bless Jack Hayes, boy.
exact.
Yeah, and Jack,
Yeah.
and as an orchestrator, as an arranger, There was nobody better than Jack Hayes. And did you know he played trumpet?
Yeah, and he wrote some great things for trumpet and for trombone. Actually, there was a cool thing that
Oh yeah, yeah. But he was a very, very fine trumpet player also.
wow, wow. I mean, he came from the glory days, the glory days of filmmaking.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. We miss him a lot. I mean, he. We miss him a lot, definitely.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. I think Gail told that story of a scoring session, and in between there was a cue that was orchestrated by Jack Hayes, and it was so well orchestrated that once they played it, they stood up and gave him standing ovation and all that.
That's true.
That's cool. I mean, he is a legend, definitely, and he was just a very
But
kind man.
absolutely, I agree with you.
I mean, and here is a kid talking who just met him once for a few hours. I mean, what can I say, right? That's so cool. So, speaking of people like Jack, what have you gained most of your career when it comes to meeting people who create music or help creating music? Can you just mention a few of those guys who you actually are very proud to have worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, uh, Jerry Goldsmith. I mean, I think I did about 30 movies with Jerry, and that to me was a thrill. I loved his son Joel. You know, I did a lot of things with his son Joel. He lived very close to me,
Oh wow.
and so Joel was a total night owl. And we were doing this TV show, the Untouchables, and uh, so I would go to bed around. Joel did the music for it, right? And then I would just go. He lived about a mile and a half away from me, so I'd go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and then his secretary would call me around 1:15 in the morning. I would get up, put my clothes on, take my horn, go over to Joel's, do a session from like 2 to 3, and then go back to bed. But Joel was like a total night owl, you know. But Joel, I mean Jerry, I love Jerry. Michael Kamen, we miss Michael so much, you know. There's so many great, Shirley Walker was so much fun to work with and such an amazing talent. And Maurice Jarre. I mean, all these people that had passed. But of the new younger guys, of course, Michael Giacchino's a genius. I mean, the kid he's unbelievable. I have to call him a kid because I think he's the same age as my son. You know, and John Powell is brilliant. And John took the whole year off. But the cool thing is that I think the end of this year he's going to start back up again, and I look forward to working for John. Of the new guys, uh, um, Henry Jackman is fantastic.
He's a great.
Scores
He's a
His
secret talent.
scores are really good,
Yeah.
and he's got such great ears. And Hator,
Yeah. Yeah.
was it
Pereira.
Pariah or
Hater Pereira
yeah,
or something like
Pereira?
that.
He's brilliant. I mean, we had so much fun working on Despicable Me and those movies with him. There's another young guy that I just worked with just recently. His name is Joe Trapeze. Trapese. Anyway,
Didn't he do the
he did the music for Oblivion.
Oh,
But man, I'm telling you, this guy, young kid, can't be more than 26, 27 years old.
wow.
He's the closest thing. And I told him, I said, he's the closest thing I've worked to Jerry Goldsmith in a long time.
What? Wow.
So and then of course, John Williams, thank God, is still with us. Lalo Schifrin. I used to always we enjoyed. We did all the Rush Hour movies with Lalo and all the. He was always fun to work with because, like Jerry, you never played it 50,000 times. It's like you play it 2 or 3 times and say that was good, right? Next cue, boom.
Cool.
Danny Elfman is somebody who I did his first movie. I've done all his movies, but his first movie was Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and Danny has grown amazing as a composer, and he's a great guy. These are all really, really nice people.
How do you deal, or how let's say, how do you feel about what changed in, let's say, film music during the last, let's say, during the last decade. I mean, there was this thing just recently about the recording in LA or London or wherever, that the recording is going outside of LA more and more, and you guys have to to deal with a lot of stuff recently, right? The last decade was just pretty changing.
Yeah, it's a shame, I mean, and I think it just comes down to money. That's all it is,
I
It's
think so.
you have the pencil pushers, the people on the on the side of the movie people who they want to know, well, why do we have to pay these guys extra money, special payment funds, when we could do it in Bratislava, we could do it in London, we could do it, you buy it one time and that's it. And so right now that's the big thing, and I hope that there is something that can solve this problem, because I want the younger guys that are coming up who are great players, man. I'm working with two young guys on Dance with the Stars. Rob Shear, who's a
Oh, Rob.
great
Rob is a
player,
cool guy. Yeah.
great trumpet player, and Chris Gray, who's a fantastic trumpet player. I want these guys to be able to have a career like I had. Um, so there has to be some way, we hope, that this thing can be resolved and maybe keep more movies here. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, I was doing, between 50 and 70 movies a year. And then in 2000, it started to get about 35 to 45 movies. I think last year I did about 34, 35 movies. That's not a lot of movies, compared to the way it used to be. But I'm blessed to be able to do the ones I'm doing. And then again, a lot of them is there's not a lot of trumpets on them. Hans Zimmer, they all want the Hans Zimmer style, which is big low brass, 16 French horns.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've done a lot of movies with Hans where it'd be two trumpets, three trumpets.
Mm.
And then you look over and there's eight trombones and two tubas and 12 French horns,
You get kind of lost, right?
Yeah, most of the movies, they want that big low end kind of thing. They're not they're not writing them like Jerry did, or whatever. I mean, John Williams is still amazing, and still uses a big orchestra. So we're all kind of hoping that for the future of the players, these young amazing players, that they will have the opportunity that I had and some of my other musicians had. I hope that that happens.
Yeah.
And I think that it will. The product out here is still unbelievable. You know, um, I think that people want to hear that LA sound, Los Angeles sound,
Exactly.
and when they do, they'll keep it here. It's sad, when I think that I play with the same 4 or 5 guys all the time.
Yeah.
That's sad to say that. I want the younger guys to be able to have a chance to have a great life.
Yeah.
And I think that this is going to work out. I really believe it will.
Wow. Good.
Egos have to be put to the side. We have to think of the future of the industry, the future for the younger guys,
Yeah.
the younger amazing musicians that are out there.
I mean, it's great that you care about those guys. I mean, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and to me, it's a thrill to sit in a section with these guys and hear what they can do and see the enthusiasm. And I'm telling you, man, there's some amazing trumpet players, there's amazing trombone, woodwinds, all the sections. Uh, the schools that are turning these guys out are turning out some amazing musicians.
I mean, you do live in an area where you have, like the best of the best.
Amen. I agree. I totally agree. And to be even considered among these guys, that for me the biggest thrill I could possibly have.
So Rick, I want to thank you because that was almost an hour of talking, and I'm just so glad that you could took some time for me. That was I'm amazed.
Oh, are you kidding? No, listen, I remember when we met. I can't believe it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, same
That
here.
you know, and I love the fact that you have so much passion for what not only we do but what you do. I know that when you come back over here, we'll be able to hang. Hopefully, it'll be in a working situation where we're going to be playing your music.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Oh man.
That would be pretty cool. Well, listen, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it, and thank you for getting up so early in the morning. Sorry about that.